Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Blackest Night comic explored. Out of every superhero in the Justice League of America, no one holds as many responsibilities as Green Lantern. That's probably because unlike the League, which operates primarily on planet Earth, Lantern's jurisdiction lies all over Space Sector 2814. And what makes his duty as a member of the Lantern Corps greater than his JLA job description is the fact that the latter has existed for a few decades at best, while the former has been active for millions of years. The premise of emotions being the basis for a Power Ring's abilities combined with Geoff Johns' exceptional capacity for storytelling led to one of DC's most successful non-crisis crossovers in recent memory. The Blackest Night storyline is one that pitted the very concepts of life and death against each other in an effort to suss out the ultimate truth of all creation. While Nekron admittedly had every Lantern Corps in existence on the ropes with his immense power in the end, it was a hero's sacrifice that saved the universe from endless darkness. But what if it hadn't happened? What if, imbued with the power of the gods, that hero decided to hoard it rather than share it? And what if death overcame life, choking out the brightness of the universe, one galaxy at a time? That's what we're here to find out. This is Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Blackest Night Explored. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. In Brightest Day, in Blackest Night, what was the Blackest Night prophecy? Ever wondered why the Green Lantern Oath begins with the words, in Brightest Day, in Blackest Night? Sure, it's a rather Shakespearean way of reaffirming one's servitude to the greater good, but the language is rather specific, don't you think? When will the brightest day arrive? What will the Blackest Night bring with it? Well, as most great cosmic stories go, it's all part of an ancient prophecy. You see, the Guardians of the Universe are guided in their quest by an ancient piece of text called the Book of O. In it, there's a prophecy that foretells the worthlessness of their quest. It speaks of a day when the emotional spectrum will be represented by more than willpower and fear, and how when all of them unite against a common enemy, all life in the universe will be snuffled out by the latter, ushering in the aforementioned Blackest Night. Abin Sur knew of this prophecy. It's part of the reason he gave his power ring to Hal Jordan. And after the Sinestro Corps War was over, the prophecy kicked into high gear using the husk of the being formerly known as the Anti-Monitor, the Lord of the Unliving, Nekron. Created a Black Lantern power battery and sent thousands upon thousands of Black Lantern rings into the universe to seek out dead hosts to reanimate. Using the Army of the Dead, he invades O, as it is considered to be the center of the DCU and the cradle of creation. His plan is simple: perform an unholy ritual to summon the life entity, then kill it, thereby killing all life in the universe and filling it with eternal darkness. He gets a good start on his goal as well, but is thwarted when Thal Sinestro bonds with the life entity instead and becomes the first White Lantern. He tries his best to live up to his destiny as the strongest being in the universe, but Nekron is still stronger. So he decides to share the life entity with Hal Jordan, who shares its powers with his friends, thereby managing to send Nekron back to the Dead Zone and save the day yet again. So what was the Blackest Night, the night where Sinestro's unwilling sacrifice of power saved the entire universe from certain doom? But what if things hadn't played out that way? To put it plainly, it would be the worst nightmare of every living creature in existence. And you know what they say about the Dark Multiverse, your worst nightmares come to life in this realm. Prophecy fulfilled, universe destroyed, that time the Blackest Night prophecy came true. The issue opens up, as most of these tales from the Dark Multiverse do, with a monologue from Tempest. Once the cosmic entity traverses the barrier between worlds, he looks for a hero from a doomed planet who can help him save the greater multiverse. Usually he stumbles across isolated planets that are contained to singular points of nightmarish existences. This time it's an entire universe. Tempest is gazing not at a solitary world, but at multitudes of them, desecrated, ravaged, a mortifying reality because of the simple fact that here, life lost to death. Here, in his greatest moment of heroism, Thal Sinestro chose to indulge his ego, and an entire universe paid the price. He wasn't ready to wield the life entity and share it with others. Though Sinestro might have had one of the strongest wills in the multiverse, he was driven by fear and a malevolent intent to hurt other people. Hal Jordan's was rooted in kindness and compassion, which are two crucial aspects of life, which is why he could wield it better. And Thal's misjudgment of his own capabilities led to the death of the entire Color Corps at the hands of the Black Lanterns, at which point Nekron promptly raised the dead and added them to his collection as well. Hal Jordan, Atrocitus, Larfleeze, Starfire, they all get converted into Black Lanterns and pick up the fight their peers have been fighting restlessly. Over the course of the next 19 days, he murders 1 trillion lifeforms every day as his curse spread across the entire known universe. Thal Sinestro is nowhere to be found, presumed to have been incapacitated by Nekron's awesome power. On Earth, nobody could survive the onslaught of the Black Lanterns. Every man in sight had fallen to the Lord of the Unliving's demonic spell. Well, all men, except the main man himself. Lobo's mission and the Limbo Lantern, a dove called Hope. Earth is a fraggin' bastich of a mess, with Black Lanterns prowling the streets like rats in a New York subway tunnel. But that doesn't matter to Lobo because his Zarnian physiology ensures he will never die. He's here to collect something, a bounty, more specifically. As it happens, that bounty is the last living avatar of a positivity in the universe, the superhero Dove. Lobo received an anonymous contract to bring her to the prison planet Nekron Galtos, and he intended to fulfill it before he could go off to sip on Mai Tai and get manicures all day long. He's attacked by Black Lantern Teen Titans when suddenly they're commanded by the life entity to live. This causes them to cry out in pain because of the conflicting nature of their existence. Then, as life began surging throughout their decaying spirits, they were condemned to die again, locking them in a torturous cycle of life and death. The same entity attempted to kill Lobo but failed, whereupon it was revealed that it was none other than Thal Sinestro, the first White Lantern and by the looks of him, the last Black Lantern. Turns out Sinestro was indeed killed by Nekron, but the power of the White Lantern ring was such that he managed to survive. A Black Lantern ring still found its way to him though, and transformed half of his body into a necrotic scarecrow, thus turning him into the Limbo Lantern. Sinestro tells Lobo he is here for Dove for 2 reasons. First was that his white power ring compelled him to seek out the last true personification of life in the known universe. Second was that he had figured out they could fix everything that had happened since Nekron destroyed the Color Core. Uneasy alliances, unlike allies, the Trinity travels to Nekron Galtos. Lobo obviously refuses to give over Dove to Thal because, after all, this is his bounty. But after he tells Sinestro where he is supposed to deliver Dove, the latter decides to travel with them, deducing that whoever had summoned them to Nekron Galtos would be working for the side of the living. The unlikely trio hops on Ramona and travels to the prison planet, while Sinestro explains to Dove just how Black Lanterns operate. Every deceased soul maintains some form of emotional tether to the realm of the living, hatred for an enemy, fear for a brother, the longing for a lover. Nekron manipulates those tethers to bind those souls to their bodies and then makes them serve his ends as Black Lanterns. So any kind of big emotional display could basically turn the 3 of them into a bright flare, giving them away, which is why he suggests Dove and Lobo to keep their emotions suppressed. As they get closer to the surface of Nekron Galtos, Sinestro realizes that something is wrong. His Black Lantern power ring starts registering Black Lantern energy on a scale he hasn't seen before, and it's coming from the direction they're supposed to be heading towards. Ever the strategic tactician, Thal suggests that they withdraw, regardless of the conditions that brought her there. Dove was still the only key they had to reversing whatever had happened to their world, and he wanted to preserve it at all costs. But the superhero in Dove hadn't died yet, and emboldened by the fact that she was the chosen for this fated task, she dives in to take on the Black Lanterns head first. Sinestro and Lobo are close behind, but Thal's black power ring practically starts bursting with energy, as if Nekron had fed his Black Lanterns some eternity juice or added a few gods to his collection. New gods, to be precise. The Trinity is faced by Black Lantern versions of practically everyone who lived in Apocalypse. Granny Goodness, Desaad, Big Barda, they're all here, and they all want to clip Dove's wings before she could do something major. But just as Lobo and Sinestro prepare to take them on, out of nowhere emerges yet another denizen of Apocalypse, albeit one unaffected by the power of the unliving, Mr. Miracle. Scot-free guides Sinestro, Dove, and Lobo into a hidden chamber where he explains that he was the one who arranged Dove's bounty. Scott pretty much knew everything that would happen the moment he handed the contract to Lobo. How Thal would show up at Earth, and how he would follow them to Nekron Galtos to face the person behind this arrangement. And he needed all 3 of them because, as it turns out, Mr. Miracle was about to truly live up to his gimmick. He had a plan to save the multiverse from the darkness engulfing it. Desperation, horror, and despair, the endgame of the Blackest Night. Scot-Free's plan went something like this. At the edge of creation lies the Source Wall, which, as its name suggests, is created from the pure light of creation and a few dead prehistoric Prometheans as well. Mr. Miracle suggests that if they could somehow harness the power of the Source Wall using his Mother Box and channel it through Dove, they would be able to scour out the Black Lanterns like the parasites they were and restore the universe to what it was like before. They arrive at the wall with Dove strapped into her harness, free-checking everything to make sure it works right, and Lobo on lookout duty. For the first time in a long time, Thal Sinestro allows himself to hope, but that would turn out to be his biggest mistake, and grimly enough, his last, because at that moment a boom tube opened up and 19 trillion Black Lanterns came spilling forth, including their demonic overlord who had chosen perhaps the most terrible body of all to host himself within, Darkseid's. The two sides engage with each other, with Nekron's forces fighting against as many Lobos as their own numbers. Thal Sinestro had to live through the horror of resurrecting his closest friend Hal Jordan and his son Saronic Natu, and reconciling with both of them before his black power ring turned them into Nekron's thralls once again. In the meantime, the Lord of the Unliving relayed to Mr. Miracle the futility of his plans, even if he managed to burn the Black Lanterns out of existence. There was nothing else left to restore. He would have to create sentient life from scratch, which means that in the end, Nekron would always win. Maddened by the thought of losing his beloved Barda, Mr. Miracle turns on Sinestro and co., after Dove has already started channeling the life force to alter reality. This enrages Lobo, who kills him and then proceeds to batter Nekron into submission. In this broken moment of chaos and anarchy, Thal Sinestro finally embraces his true destiny. Hal Jordan's words remind him that he is, in fact, the strongest lantern of all time. His white power ring starts overflowing with life energy, and he knows just how he's going to use it. He swaps in Lobo for Dove and uses him as the basis for the creation of the new universe, arguing that the Zarnian physiology was the very essence of life, since he could not die, and hoping that it would be fertile ground for sentient life that would, for once in its entire existence, stay in line and keep the peace. What ended up happening was way more nightmarish. It ended in darkness and death. In the aeons after Thal Sinestro remade the universe in Lobo's image, he was forced to live with the consequences of his many failures. Thal knew Lobo's cruel, self-serving, barbaric nature, and yet he went against better judgment and used such an incendiary being as the foundation for sentient life. The backlash came quick, hard, and ruthless, much like the main man himself. Lobo was revered as the god of this new universe, which grew rapidly with days. Single-celled organisms had been created, and they had developed into full-fledged life forms in a matter of months. Societies, cultures, religions, and many other institutions of civilization cropped up within the first 2 years. You'd think that this would be a great achievement for him, right? He did what the Malthusians themselves couldn't. He created hyper-intelligent, all-encompassing life. It would have been his greatest triumph had it stopped there, except it didn't. Soon enough, these civilizations advanced so far beyond their intended time frame that they became capable of interstellar travel, and with it they initiated an intergalactic wildfire of conquest and slaughter. Every life form in this new world tried to kill every other life form to ensure they were the last ones standing, and every last one of these bastages was deplorable to their cores. Sinestro was horrified by what he had done and tried to escape his reality by traversing through the tear between realms, but he was blocked by Tempest. The Fugonot bade the Corrigarian to bear witness to his greatest failure, the universe created from the blood of a ruthless killer that was descending into madness as quickly as their progenitor could heal. The issue closes with Tempest Fugonot silently listening to Thal Sinestro's desperate cries for help, as he thinks to himself that he has seen the true Blackest Night, and that it is one where no bright lanterns will ever shine. Why Tales from the Dark Multiverse Blackest Night is more terrifying than the original story. The British historian Lord Acton once stated that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's as if Tim Seeley and Kyle Hotz took it upon themselves to breathe life into this quote, because that is exactly what Sinestro personifies in this tale from the Dark Multiverse. In the original Blackest Night event, the life entity is shared by him and Hal Jordan because they realize it is the right thing to do. In the Dark Multiverse, however, he chooses not to give up his absolute power and literally corrupts him by turning half his body into a mortified cadaver. Even his actions are tinged with aspects of this quote. Who in their right minds would think Lobo was a good template for creating stable sentient life? And that's exactly the point. Sinestro wasn't stable. His consciousness was divided between life and death. Dove saw him as a figure of perfect balance, when the exact opposite was true. The imbalance created by his very existence bred pain in the universe. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Blackest Night is a grim reminder that with great power comes great responsibility, and that responsibility must be shared, because kept locked within one vessel, it is more likely than not to rot away, and what it comes back as is something none of us want to know. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.